It's hard to imagine just how massive China's pork industry really is until you see row upon row of steel structures, each one teeming with thousands of pigs. On these sprawling sites, the hum of automated feeding systems never seems to die down. Workers in protective gear hurry from one station to another, scanning digital readouts that pinpoint feeding schedules, weight gains, and temperature controls. Blink, and you might miss how swiftly each part of the process moves. Some say it's incredible proof of modern efficiency. Others worry it's a glimpse into an unsettling future where animals are treated more like machine components than living beings. The truth is, China's pig processing capabilities have skyrocketed in recent years, fueled by soaring demand at home and abroad. Each day, modernized farms and high-speed slaughter lines churn through thousands of pigs. The spectacle starts long before the animals ever enter a factory. Breeding facilities often use artificial insemination to maintain faster growth rates and specific genetic traits. Automated climate controls keep barns at the ideal temperature year-round, while mechanized feeding troughs reduce manpower needs. By the time these animals reach slaughter weight, the entire system, down to the slightest detail, has been carefully calibrated to ensure maximum output with minimal delay. But that wasn't the whole story. Despite the polished image, rumors persist about corners being cut in less transparent factories. One thing is certain: the scale is astonishing. Few places on Earth match the volume of China's pork production, especially when you consider how vital pork is to the nation's diet. Many consumers might not realize how much behind-the-scenes orchestration is needed to ensure a constant supply of fresh meat in grocery stores, markets, and restaurants. Some advanced farms boast self-cleaning floors, robotic feeding arms, and sophisticated ventilation systems. Others might still rely on older methods, raising questions about consistency and standards. Supporters argue that these modern high-tech farms actually provide better conditions, because precise monitoring can detect disease outbreaks or health issues more quickly. Critics counter that no amount of innovation can mask the fundamental controversies around packing so many animals into tight spaces. Those controversies become especially heated when it comes to animal welfare. Video clips have popped up online depicting cramped stalls and frantic pigs, setting off a wave of criticism. Activists accuse certain large operations of treating animals purely as profit machines. On the other side, some producers claim that specialized pens limit fighting among the herd and keep each pig's environment stable, thereby reducing stress. They also point out that advanced monitoring systems can instantly flag temperature spikes or dips in feed consumption, allowing for swift intervention. At first glance, this might seem like a win for the animals. Yet the conversation doesn't stop there. Whispers hint at lesser-known facilities, where official guidelines aren't strictly followed, leaving many to wonder how well these regulations are enforced across such a gigantic industry. At the same time, environmentalists have raised alarm bells about the ecological impact of processing thousands of pigs a day. Think about the enormous amount of waste each farm generates. Proper disposal requires advanced treatment facilities, waste-to-energy programs, or detailed guidelines to keep contaminants out of rivers and groundwater. Some large farms brag about cutting-edge biogas systems that transform pig manure into electricity, feeding power back into the grid. Others reportedly struggle to keep up with the volume of waste when production ramps up, leading to rumors of unauthorized dumps or accidental spills. Although official statements emphasize tighter oversight, critics question whether local governments can truly police such a vast network of factories and barns, especially when profitability clashes with the cost of environmental safeguards. But the push for efficiency has not only changed how pigs are raised, it's revolutionized how they're processed. Walk into a modern Chinese slaughterhouse, and you'll see systematic lines that strip away the old image of chaotic or unregulated practices. Mechanized stunning stations, conveyor belts, and digital scanning technology keep everything moving at breakneck speed. To some, it's a sign that China has stepped onto the global stage with thoroughly modern processes that can rival any Western competitor. Yet controversies don't vanish once the animals leave the barn. Rumors sometimes surface about hygiene lapses on older lines, workers forced to meet staggering quotas, and allegations of quick cleanups when inspectors arrive. Official reports often push back, showing data on improved safety protocols and shorter processing times that reduce the risk of contamination. As is so often the case, the truth likely lies somewhere in between these two extremes. Technology is a double-edged sword. It promises greater transparency, higher yield, and fewer mistakes, but it also raises questions about who truly benefits. For instance, advanced scanning systems can judge the optimal moment to slaughter a pig, or precisely measure the layer of fat for quality grading. Companies love the efficiency and cost savings, while some employees fear technology might reduce their roles or push them to keep pace with automated lines. On top of that, there's the question of data privacy. Detailed tracking of animals from birth to processing ensures traceability, which is great if you're a consumer worried about food safety. But it also means giant agribusiness firms hold enormous databases about farming techniques, feed formulations, and breeding records. Critics worry this knowledge gap could stifle smaller producers who can't afford such technology or find themselves locked out of top-tier markets without it. Then comes the human aspect. Operating such large-scale facilities demands significant manpower. But not everyone thrives in these environments. Claims have circulated that certain factories require employees to work grueling hours to keep up with round-the-clock production. The lines don't slow down just because someone's tired. In some cases, companies have raised wages to attract more skilled labor, especially as the industry grows increasingly specialized. Others rely on migrant workers who might have fewer job options. And in a system that prizes efficiency above all, the pressure to hit targets can lead to overlooked health risks or unsafe conditions. Managers typically deny widespread problems, pointing to official labor inspections and compliance certifications. Yet worker testimonies occasionally surface, hinting at a different reality behind the scenes. The entire system has faced a trial by fire in recent years, especially with disease outbreaks. African swine fever, for instance, shook China's pig industry to its core not long ago. Massive culls took place to contain the spread. Some critics say the rush to produce more pigs after the disease subsided forced factories to accelerate their timelines, intensifying pressure on both animals and workers. Meanwhile, biosecurity measures ramped up. Many large operations instituted disinfectant checkpoints at every entrance, mandatory quarantines for incoming livestock, and strict protocols for disposing of infected animals. These steps might have saved the industry from even worse devastation, but they also highlighted how fragile the entire system can be when disease breaks out. Some watchers call it a red flag, warning that a single virulent outbreak could cripple the industry if corners are cut. Others view it as a testament to China's organizational might, given how quickly production rebounded on such a huge scale. Whatever your perspective, there's no denying that China's pig processing has implications far beyond its borders. Pork from these mega facilities doesn't just stay in domestic supermarkets. It's exported worldwide, fueling global trade deals and forging international partnerships. This economic power can have surprising ripple effects. If China's pork supply runs short, it can drive up global prices. If the nation produces a surplus, it might flood certain markets and destabilize local producers abroad. Trade disputes sometimes simmer as countries debate whether Chinese pork meets certain health and safety standards. At the same time, major industry players are pouring resources into marketing campaigns aimed at reassuring foreign buyers that Chinese pork is both high quality and responsibly produced. It all circles back to the deeper question: can mass production, on the scale China has embraced, ever be reconciled with ethical and sustainable principles? To some entrepreneurs, the answer lies in forging ahead with more advanced tech, stricter regulations, and higher labor standards, believing that continuous improvement will eventually align profit with responsibility. To skeptics, the system is flawed at its core, pushing animals, workers, and the environment beyond safe limits in the quest for cheap meat. There's also an emerging consumer class, both within China and abroad, that's becoming more particular about how their food is raised. This group might pay a premium for organic pork or local farms that claim cruelty-free practices. Whether that niche will ever rival the mainstream hunger for affordable, abundant meat remains to be seen. Meanwhile, small-scale farmers sometimes feel left behind in the race to industrialize. In more rural parts of China, traditional pig farming used to be a family affair, with households raising a few animals at a time for supplemental income. Now, these smallholders struggle to compete with massive corporations that have economies of scale, advanced technology, and direct lines to major distributors. Some have joined cooperatives or formed alliances with bigger companies. Others have dropped out of pig farming altogether, leaving behind vacant barns and a way of life that's rapidly fading into memory. Supporters of industrial methods argue that modernization improves overall efficiency and hygiene standards, but critics lament the loss of diverse local practices and the financial squeeze on independent farmers. Stories also swirl about innovation on the horizon. Some Chinese companies are researching lab-grown pork, a futuristic approach that might circumvent many problems of traditional farming. If it ever becomes viable on a large scale, that might transform the industry entirely, potentially reducing animal welfare concerns and environmental pressures. But until that day arrives, conventional pig farming and processing remains the linchpin of the nation's meat supply. For every step toward high-tech solutions, there seem to be fresh controversies, whether it's about antibiotic-resistant strains that develop in crowded pens or the carbon footprint of producing millions of tons of feed. The industry's sheer scope ensures that any flaw can quickly balloon into a major crisis. Yet, it's crucial to remember that not every facility or farmer is the same. In a country as vast and diverse as China, some operations rigorously follow best practices for animal care and environmental protection, investing in new technology to address shortcomings. Others may operate in a legal gray area, capitalizing on loopholes or a lack of enforcement to maximize short-term profits. Efforts to unify standards and regulations continue, but it's a slow process when billions of dollars and countless vested interests are at stake. International bodies sometimes step in, pushing for certifications and audits, but these measures only work if local actors cooperate. It's a dance of diplomacy, commerce, and politics that plays out every day in these bustling agricultural hubs. Stand in the middle of a state-of-the-art Chinese pig processing facility, and you might be impressed by the cleanliness, the noise of automated machines doing precision tasks, and the uniformed workers skillfully handling each stage. Then step outside the city, where an older, smaller-scale slaughterhouse might be using outdated tools and struggling with daily waste disposal. This contrast between cutting-edge science and more rudimentary approaches highlights the complexity of changing an entire sector in record time. Even with the best of intentions, scaling improvements across so many farms remains daunting. This duality can be unsettling. On one hand, you have world-class systems that rival any global competitor. On the other, deeply entrenched issues that never quite make the headlines. Despite the confusion and controversies, China's pig industry shows no signs of slowing down. Rising incomes and evolving dietary habits at home, paired with strong overseas demand, keep the sector charging ahead. Companies jockey to build bigger and better facilities, while local governments often welcome these projects for the jobs and tax revenue they bring. Environmental watchdogs and animal welfare advocates keep up the pressure, sometimes succeeding in forcing incremental improvements or stricter oversight. Yet as soon as one problem is addressed, new ones arise. Be it fresh allegations about labor, revelations about antibiotic usage, or tensions over water resources in regions where farms cluster around major rivers. Ultimately, China's ability to process thousands of pigs a day in massive, technology-driven factories is a testament to human ingenuity and the drive for productivity. It's also a flashpoint for ethical debates that touch on everything from climate change to global trade dynamics. The stakes are sky-high. One slip-up can contaminate food supplies or unleash a new wave of protests. One breakthrough can inspire other nations to follow suit, shaping how billions of people eat. Whether you view these developments as a remarkable leap forward or a troubling turn, depends on your perspective, your values, and your place in this ever-evolving global food chain. That leads us to a pivotal question. As these mega farms continue to scale up, can anyone truly guarantee that animal welfare, worker rights, and environmental integrity remain intact? Perhaps the industry will adapt, harnessing advanced tech to mitigate the worst excesses while feeding an immense population. Or maybe the cracks will widen, prompting a reckoning that forces a radical rethinking of how pork is produced. For now, we see a system in flux, a high-wire act, balancing the demands of business, the complexities of regulation, and the moral dilemmas of mass meat consumption. Change is inevitable, but the direction and speed of that change remain uncertain. In the end, China's mega-scale pig processing is about more than just turning out vast quantities of pork. It's a revealing window into how far modern agriculture has come and how far it might yet go. Standing at that crossroads, we can marvel at the efficiency or recoil from the industrial reality, or perhaps do a bit of both. There's no denying that the factories are feats of engineering, orchestrating thousands of animals a day with near-military precision. At the same time, uneasy questions linger. What does this mean for the animals, the workers, the planet, and by extension for all of us who rely on this food chain? Maybe the industry will strike a balance, proving that large-scale farming can integrate humane treatment and environmental care. Maybe not, but these images, thousands of pigs under a single roof, the hum of machinery echoing through cavernous halls, the workforce racing against production quotas, leave us with a lasting impression. It's an operation that feeds millions, yet grapples with a cascade of ethical and practical challenges. As consumers, policymakers, or simply curious observers, we stand witness to an unfolding drama that could reshape how we eat and how we feel about the food on our plates. In the grand scheme, this is about more than pork. It's about our relationship with the natural world, our willingness to push boundaries in pursuit of efficiency, and the unseen consequences that surface when an industry grows so large it becomes almost a force of nature itself. Whether you walk away inspired or uneasy, one thing is certain: the pace of China's pig industry won't slow anytime soon, and the eyes of the world will remain fixed on how it chooses to balance progress with responsibility. It's a story still being written, with enormous stakes for everyone involved. Will these modern wonders ultimately stand as proof that we can feed billions responsibly? Or will history judge them as cautionary tales of unrestrained ambition? The answer might shock everyone.